I found that I was like holding things up because it wasn't 100% Courtney, right? It wasn't 100% the way that I would do it. They're so obsessed with finding or hiring people who can like operate at 100%. If everything needs to be perfect, then one, it's gonna take longer. You don't get the advantage of those compounding gains, right? Hey, Courtney Sanders here. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are listening to this on the audio version on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, you can also come on over to my YouTube channel and check out the video version of this. And if you're already watching this on YouTube, hey, super excited to be doing these video podcasts. I really enjoy them. But in today's episode, I want to continue my CEO series. So if you're new to my podcast or you're new to this series, this is a series of episodes that I've been doing that really kind of pulls the curtain behind stepping into a CEO role and what that is looked like for me. So I decided to do this because I found it very difficult to find a lot of information around stepping into the CEO role. I feel like in this broader conversation about online entrepreneurship, online business, coaching, etc., so much of the focus is on making money and landing clients, and nothing's wrong with that. In fact, in many aspects, I feel like that should be the focus because so many people struggle just to even get to that level, to get to the point where they are landing clients consistently and they are making a sustainable income. But once you've kind of pushed past that, and I do feel very fortunate and grateful that I have built my business to a place where getting clients aren't really an issue. And that's part of why I preach so heavily on both my YouTube channel and my podcast on branding and all the different things that I do, being consistent, create a lot of content, because over the years, it has kind of created a position for me where I am known. So there's actually not a lot of like selling that I need to do. I just create my content and people find out about me and then they binge my content. And then oftentimes they reach out to me and say, hey, how can I work with you one-on-one? How can I join your program, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just a side note. If you are in that place where you're like, man, I would like to get to a place where landing clients isn't an issue, you need to do what I'm saying. And this is like a sidebar. We'll get into the actual topic of today's CEO series, but I even think about this from the standpoint of like investing money. You know, you hear all the time like, oh man, if you would just invest $100 a month, you know, by the time you're 65 or 85 or whatever, you would have X amount of millions of dollars in the bank. People know this intellectually, but they still don't do it, right? And then they are complaining, oh, I don't have any money set aside, or I don't have any investments or whatever, not realizing that all the years that they spent spinning their wheels, you know, thinking about other things when they could have just been putting that money aside consistently, the time is going to pass anyway. And you're going to look up one day and be like, dang, 5 years has passed. 10 years has passed. Wouldn't you have liked to be in a position where those little $100 or $500 or whatever you're putting away compounded and got you to that place? And so it's the same thing in your business. I feel like I get on my podcast or my YouTube channel every single day, and I talk about the importance of building your brand and creating content consistently, even if no one's showing up, even if it's not perfect, et cetera, et cetera. And people like will sit and watch and like nod their head and then they don't do it. And I'm a perfect example of this because really I've been building my brand technically since 2009. I got online in 2007. I started my first blog in 2009. I got into coaching in 2014, and then I went full time into 2016. So even if we take it from a standpoint of just being full time, I've been full-time for 7 years now, and I've been creating content consistently for well over 7 years, right? Because I've been creating content online consistently since 2009. So I've been creating content consistently well over a decade, right? But you are seeing the fruits of all of these things compounding. So anyway, that's a little rabbit trail and aside of why my business is now at the point where, you know, getting clients is not really an issue. I mean, you know, knock on wood, anything could happen in the economy, whatever. So I don't take it for granted or like, oh, I'm just forever going to be in this position because I'm so great. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I've put in the work to get to this position, but because most people are not in this position and most of the marketing online is like how to get clients, there's not a lot of discussion around how to transition out of being the person that's working in the business, being the practitioner, even being the coach, and then really stepping into a CEO role, right? So I still consider myself a coach. I'll, forever be a coach, but to be frank, I don't really do one-on-one work anymore. I do some occasional one-on-one work, but it's quite pricey, as it should be, because my time is very, very expensive now, right? Because if I'm taking time to focus on somebody else's business, that means I'm taking time away from my own business. I'm taking time away from building the things that we're doing. And just with the level of revenue that we're scaling to, by definition, if you take an hour of my time, you've cost me quite a bit of money in my own business. And so if you are adamant that you want to work with me one-on-one, you're going to have to compensate me for the time that I'm going to have to divert from my business in order to do that. So I'm really at this point now where I'm charging, especially for my one-on-one work, I'm not just charging the value of what it is to you, I'm also charging the value of what it is to me. And that could be a whole nother discussion and a whole nother podcast that I find that a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize as they are moving up, and they keep doing favors for family and friends, and oh, you my homegirl, is fine, and keep discounting, not realizing that it's costing a lot more than you think it is. Like, your time is actually super valuable. So anyway, with that in mind, in today's episode, kind of going along those that thinking in terms of the value of your time, I wanted to talk about pushing past perfectionism, because this is something that's been coming up for me. Would I call myself a perfectionist? Yeah, probably. I say I dabble, right? I'm like a constantly recovering perfectionist, right? It's something that I've worked on. It's something that I'm better at most days, but then some days I find myself slipping back into perfectionism. But I find that perfectionism has been really unique in this journey of, again, venturing to be a CEO and really stepping into my CEO role, because I'm seeing the cascading negative effects of perfectionism and why perfectionism is actually not a good thing. In fact, I think a lot of people confuse perfectionism with excellence, but perfectionism is not excellence, actually. Perfectionism is just simply procrastination. Sometimes being excellent is actually doing the imperfect thing, because the long run, right, the downstream effects that are going to come from that are actually more beneficial to your business or even your life or whatever, arena you were thinking about perfectionism in. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people have. So the first thing that I've really done to push past perfectionism, or rather, let me back up. I'll talk about really where I started to realize this. And I want to give a shout out to Layla Harmozy. I don't know her personally, but actually her and her husband are a great example of what I talk about in terms of building your brand and creating consistent content, because they've really just blown up online by the sheer deluge of content, right, that they're producing on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. But they're a couple, entrepreneurial power couple who runs a variety of businesses, and they invest in businesses. And I particularly like Layla's commentary and Layla's channel, because she's a woman entrepreneur and she's balancing family and building a business and doing all these different things. But one thing that she said in one of her videos or episodes, or one of the pieces of content, right, that I stumbled on. So again, creating consistent content really works. But she talked about how oftentimes people struggle to get to the next level, whether it's from like 7-figure to 8-figure or even beyond, because they're so obsessed with finding or hiring people who can like operate at 100%, right? We think in terms of like being the A player. And I know for me, as the CEO of my business and the person who has worn every hat, right? Usually I'm the one doing the thing until I hire it and delegate it off, and then I move to something else. So when I have people in these roles, there's pretty much not a role in my business that I haven't done first, right? And so, as entrepreneurs, we like to think highly of ourselves and like, I could do this. I've been running this business myself, et cetera, et cetera. Well, because we have that attitude, oftentimes we hold off on hiring people or hold off on delegating, because we're convinced that if we can't find someone who can do it as well as we can do it, if you can't do it as well as I can do it, then it's not worth hiring you. And again, I don't know the video where she talked about this. I'll try to find the clip and include it in the show notes. But she talked about this concept of how if you really want to scale, you have to get over that, because the compounding value that you get from, say, 3, 85% players versus 100% player is that much greater, right? I mean, even thinking about it from like a mathematical standpoint, even if you have 4 50% players, right? And granted, I don't think you should hire people that can only operate at 50%, but even if you are working with people who can only do, say, half of what you can do, or can only do half as good a job as you can do, if you have 4 people who are tackling things in your business and they can do at least 50% of what you can do, well, now you're operating at 200%, right? Or like the compounded total effect is double double of what it would be if you were doing everything yourself, because you were insisting on it being perfect. You were insisting on it being 100%. And that really stuck with me, because I realized that there, even now, are still many bottlenecks in my business that have been bottlenecks because I'm the bottleneck, because I'm the one that's like, the graphics, that social media graphic, like, can we change the background? Because I really want it to look like this. Or, I don't know. What else am I a perfectionist about? Pretty much my graphics, actually. I think I'm better on everything else. Copy, right? Sometimes writing the copy from my landing pages, I can be a bit of a stickler and be like, no, I need it to sound just like me, as if I wrote it. I want the copywriter to make it like just in my voice. And so, it's hard because, again, I used to do all these things, right? I even used to do my own graphics. Now, that was a long time ago, back in like 2014, 2015, but I know my style. I know my visual brand. I know my voice. I know how I like to sound in my written copy. And so I found that I was like holding things up because it wasn't 100% Courtney, right? It wasn't 100% the way that I would do it. But that was really eye-opening, again, to hear from Layla Harmozy, like, you know what, if you can have someone who can maybe do 80% as good of a job as you would do, on your marketing copy, or 80% of a job that you would do on your graphics, the compounded effect of them just like doing it and getting it out, that's actually excellence, because that actually moves the ball forward and that actually gets the results that you're looking for, versus having things really hung up. So I would say the first thing that I've really had to acknowledge and understand about perfectionism and how it's actually a detriment to my business is that you don't get the advantage of those compounding gains, right? If everything needs to be perfect, then one, it's going to take longer, it's going to be slower, and you are the one that's going to have to do everything. But again, if you're working with people who are still doing a good job, but maybe they don't do as good a job as you, it's fine, because all of them working compounded over time is going to accelerate your results that much faster. And so the next thing that I've really had to come to an understanding when it comes to pushing past perfectionism is really understanding this idea of refining versus perfecting. And so again, in the past, I'm recovering, I was definitely a perfectionist where I didn't want to move forward with something unless it was actually perfect. Now, refining is a little different, where you move forward first and then you see what can be improved. And then you improve the things that make sense to improve based on the return that it's going to provide you, right? So let me see if I can give an example. So, I have various freebies and opt-ins that we give away for free in order to grow my email list. And then once you're on my email list, we, send emails about new videos that are coming out, or new podcasts that I'm releasing. And then also when I have a new product that I'm announcing, we let my email list know. So it's very important that we grow that email list and that we continue to nurture my email list with all different content, right? And so because I have all these different freebies, oftentimes I'm promoting them on my various videos. You'll notice at the end of my videos, I'll usually recommend that you can go download something, or on my Instagram, I might direct people towards a particular freebie. Or even now we're starting to ramp up with ads again. I'd gone through periods where I wasn't really dealing with ads because I didn't need to, because my organic traffic was really strong, but now we're kind of diving back into ads. And so we're sending paid traffic to these freebies. And so you, instead of being a perfectionist, right? A perfectionist is, well, I'm not going to launch or release this freebie until one, the freebie is perfect, and then two, the landing page is like perfect and is exactly what it needs to be. Versus more of a refining mindset is, okay, we're offering this freebie. Let's just create something. We know it's not going to be perfect at the outset, but let's just create something and put it out there. And then once we put it out there and we see how people are dealing with it, meaning, if I am promoting it on my YouTube channel, we're tracking the clicks, how many people are clicking into that freebie. If the clicks are low, or let's say the clicks are very high, but a lot of people are not actually signing up. So we're getting a lot of people to actually check out the freebie, but they're not signing up. Now that we have that data, then we can start to refine it. And so I find that refining is actually better than perfectionism, because refining gets you closer to perfect than perfectionism does. Isn't that crazy, right? Perfectionism, you really have to be careful. Like, most perfectionists would never think of themselves this way, but it's kind of an arrogant attitude to believe that you know what's best from the outset without putting something out there, right? To say, no, I can't put this out there because it's not perfect, presupposes that you even know what perfect is. And so having more of a refining mindset is really a mindset of humility, to say, I'm not God. Like, I don't know what the perfect scenario is going to be, or what the perfect, freebie landing page product, whatever it is that we're creating. I don't know what the perfect version of that is actually going to be until I put it out there, get the data, get feedback, and then I can refine and say, okay, we thought that this was going to be great, but we're finding that people are bouncing off the page, or people are getting to the page, but they're not signing up, or people are not even clicking, whatever, right? It's not failure, it's just feedback. Great. Now we've gotten data. Now we can change things and kind of refine things based on the information that we've gotten. And so this refining versus perfectionism really has given me a lot of freedom to just put things out there. And again, going back to the CEO mindset, not just me putting things out there, but actually delegating to my team to put things out there. Because again, part of the issue of not wanting to delegate was, my team can't do it as well as I can. But part of the reason they can't, quote unquote, do it as well as you can is, one, they're not in your head, and two, they don't know what your version of perfect is. But really, you don't even know you don't know if your version of perfect is what's actually perfect. And so stepping into more of a refining mindset versus a perfectionist mindset has given me the freedom to just give stuff to my team. And even if their initial, way that they would do something is different than the way that I would do it, it doesn't really matter, because the data is going to tell us either way, right? Maybe I was like, well, why didn't you do it this way? I would have done it that way, but maybe I would have been wrong, right? Maybe the data would have shown that, we need to do something different. So the first time you do something now, I don't look for it to be a winner right out the gate. I just look to put it out there and to get the feedback so that over time we can refine it and turn it into a winner. And that doesn't need to be something that comes from me. It could be something that comes from my team. Because again, the first guess is just a guess anyway. And my guess isn't necessarily better than theirs. It's just seeing what the data is going to tell us, or what our audience engagement ultimately is going to tell us. So really stepping into that refining mindset versus perfectionism has really, really helped me. And then also understanding that I don't want to be arrogant and think that I know it all. So, my version of perfect might not be perfect after all. So I alluded to this earlier in the episode, but again, really what has not only sparked this pushing past perfectionism, but me taking this very seriously is also taking my value very seriously and my worth very seriously. Again, understanding that my time is actually worth a lot. And, it could feel good to say that, or people imagine like, oh, if I were in that position, it would feel really good to say that. But there's a whole psychological process that you have to go through in order to be okay with saying that, especially because the majority of people around you will not be able to say the same for their own time professionally, right? And I make that caveat. I say from a professional sense, obviously all of our time is equal from the standpoint of heaven forbid anything happen to us, right? There's no amount of money that can, bring us back, right? So everybody is infinitely valuable from that standpoint. But from a marketplace standpoint, there are certain things that I can't do now. I don't do it because it costs me too much, right? For instance, I do a lot of Instacarting, right? I only go to a grocery store if I'm on the way home and I need something immediately, and I can't wait the 30 minutes to an hour for Instacart or Shipt or whatever to deliver it to my home. Part of the reason why I do that, and I know to some people this is going to sound ridiculous, it's not that I do it because I like to. I literally can't do it anymore. And I know that you can't do it. You can't get in the car and drive to the grocery store. No, of course, physically I could, but it actually costs me way too much to go to the grocery store, especially in the middle of the day. Maybe I can make a case for it if I'm on my free time or my downtime and it's Saturday and I just want to stop by the store and kind of putz around and get something for a dish I'm making. That's something different. But if we're talking about my actual working hours and, my nanny is texting me saying oh, your daughter needs more diapers, I literally cannot go to the store and do that because it would cost me too much to do that. I actually don't have a choice but to have Instacart order that for me, because the amount of time that it's taking away from my business in order to do that is costing me a lot of hours. And so, like I said, there's, especially for women, there can be this kind of shame of coming to that realization because you in your head don't want to think that you're better than anybody, or how can you say that, especially when you're family members, right? You're trying to communicate this and your mom is like, well, I go to the grocery store, you say your time worth mine, don't be ridiculous, go to the grocery store. And people literally don't understand because they don't understand what is required in order to operate at this level, right? Oftentimes they don't understand the level of focus that you need to have. Even as I'm recording this podcast, I'm in in my condo, right? So I have an investment property. We do short-term rentals with it, but increasingly, much to my husband's chagrin, I use this as my content creation studio because it's quiet and I'm away from the house, right? And, the kids are home from school, or my daughter's there with the nanny, and, there's crying and different things going on in the background. And it might feel like, well, it's not that big of a deal, like whatever, just wait till the baby's done crying and then just shoot your content. Again, when you are operating at a high speed, every little micro movement like matters, right? If you are in a car, imagine you are driving at like 200 miles an hour, a slight shift of the steering wheel could totally like have you crash and burn. Where if you are driving 20 miles an hour in a, school zone, you see a squirrel jump out and you jerk the car, like you're not going to crash, like nobody's dying, right? Because the car is only going 20 miles an hour. And so it's the same way in your business when you're operating at a high level. And so I find that a lot of women stay stuck in perfectionism because they literally don't understand the value of their time, because really they're so used to devaluing themselves. So one, they're used to devaluing themselves just from a societal standpoint, because most of the people around them and their peer group, their time is not as valuable as theirs. Again, not from like a life value standpoint, right? All of our lives are equal and of high worth. But from a commercial market, like making money standpoint, most of their peers, especially if they have traditional, 9-to-5 jobs, that time is very, very regimented, right? This is your salary. You work this amount of hours. Like this is what your time is worth, right? Versus being an entrepreneur and you have this entire business on your shoulders, including other people that you are now responsible for because you are paying salaries and payrolls. See, people don't think about that as well, right? You want me at the grocery store shopping so that I can like pretend to people that I don't think I'm better than anyone else, but then I'm missing meetings and not doing important work that ultimately generates revenue so that I can like sign those paychecks, right? Nobody wants to talk about that, which is why I'm doing the CEO series, because there's not this discussion about this. And even having that mindset is more acceptable for men to understand that, or for them to speak that way, I find, than it is for women, even if that's made up in our head, right? Maybe you're watching this and you're like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares. Okay. But I find for a lot of women, there is this internalized, like, nice girl syndrome of, oh no, I don't think I'm better than, I don't think my time is worth more. No, and we're almost like doing things that we really have no business doing based on the value of our time to try to prove to others that we think that, we don't think too highly of ourselves, right? And so if you have a sober, clear understanding of what the value of your time is, you will realize that you actually cannot afford to be a perfectionist, because the longer you drag on a project because you are nitpicking and, being a perfectionist about things that ultimately don't matter, the more money it's costing you, not just in terms of lost revenue, meaning let's say there is a project that you are working on, maybe you're working on a new course or you're writing a book or something, and it's almost done and the cover is coming out, right? And you're being super nitpicky about the color of the background, or do you want this photo with you in this dress versus, and you're holding up the project and it's taken months because no one can, get you to come to an agreement on exactly what the cover of your book is going to look like. Most of us from an intellectual standpoint understand that that whole situation has now cost you money, because that has delayed the book getting out. And now that the book hasn't gotten out, one, that's lost sales from the book, but also maybe you would have gotten speaking opportunities. Maybe the Today Show or Good Morning America would have been knocking at your door had your book been out, and then you would have been on TV, and then somebody else would have reached out to you and you would have gotten a $100,000 speaking engagement. Like, I'm making things up, but there's could have been this whole domino effect that's happening because the book didn't come out, right? I think intellectually we can understand that, but for most of us, we struggle to realize the months that you were like so invested in these like micro things that don't really matter, all that time you spent also costs you, right? Because your time is worth something. So whatever your hourly rate is, like, do it. Look at the revenue that you generate. Look at the amount of hours that you work, in a week. Who know, many of you who are watching this right now, and I know I have a lot of like high level business women who kind of like silently watch my YouTube channels and don't comment or anything because they're busy, right? But they're watching. So if that's you, hey girl, hey, I'm especially talking to you. Go ahead and do that math. There are some of you who are watching this right now whose hourly rate, like when you do the math, is like $2,000 an hour, right? $3,000 an hour, which again sounds preposterous to the average person. But if you take the revenue, again, that you're generating and the amount of hours that you work in order to produce your revenue, that is your hourly rate. And so you're sitting here driving your team crazy, not delegating things, being super nitpicky perfectionist off of stuff. Even if it delayed the project by 10 hours, because that was 10 hours, let's say over the course of a month, where every time you got on a meeting, you spent an hour running people in circles over these nitpicky things, understand that you just spent $30,000 of your own money, right? If your hourly rate in our hypothetical example is worth $3,000 an hour and you delayed this by 10 hours and you spent 10 hours of time being an ultra perfectionist, ask yourself, was it worth $30,000? Because that's what you just spent. Again, you have to think about these things in real terms. And that's really what this CEO series is all about. It's helping entrepreneurs, especially those that do want to transcend to a level where they're not being the practitioner anymore, but they're actually being the high level visionary. You have to start to quantify things in real dollars and cents. You have to get out of this like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. No, everything you do, you need to understand the economic impact that is attached to this. So I'll say for this episode and for the CEO series, for me, understanding all of these things, right? Understanding the value of compounded gains, even if it's not perfect. If someone is operating at 80%, their work compounded ultimately has a greater output than me waiting and doing it myself. But then also understanding that my perfect might actually not be perfect, right? And I need to have more of a refining mindset instead of a perfectionist mindset and just put something out there and let the data determine what we need to do and then refine it from there. But then also really having this kind of emotional understanding of like, hey, your time is worth a lot. And I know that makes you feel weird because maybe the people in your immediate circle, their time isn't as worth as much as yours from a commercial standpoint, right? Not from a life or human value standpoint, but just from a marketplace standpoint, you're kind of unique in that your time is worth so much. And so you have to do activities that are like literally different than them. And you might worry how they think about you, but you kind of have to put that to the side and understand the economic impact of your actions and make sure that you are allowing things to happen in your business anyway versus holding them up via perfectionism because it's costing you a lot more than you think. So if you're watching this, again, if you aspire to be a CEO, I really hope that, these real like raw talks, right? And again, I'm not coming to you as like a guru or even an expert at this level because this is just what I am personally going through, but I love to share the realizations as they're happening. This is almost like a video journal or a documentation because this is the information that I wish somebody would have told me. So if you're struggling with perfectionism, regardless of what level that you are at, especially if you want to get to this kind of like CEO level, then it's time to start letting that go and start acting like a CEO right now. And a CEO would highly, highly value their time. So I really hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Again, whether you watch it on my YouTube channel or on or listen to it on iTunes or Spotify. If you're like, you know what, I'm ready to build my business so that I can even have a fighting chance to get to that CEO level, then I definitely invite you to join me in my Next Big Name Bootcamp. This is my signature program that teaches you A to Z, everything that I've done to build my business to where it is right now. We go over all of that content, brand building, funnels, systems, all the things necessary in order to build a business in this day and age at this level. So if that is something that you're interested in, you can click the link in the show notes, description box, etc. to apply. And if you're accepted, you'll be invited to a call with my enrollment team to learn more about it. So with that, thank you so much for watching, listening, however you consumed this podcast, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.